Welcome, guys. This is the All Around Financial Coaching YouTube channel, and this week we bring to you Theta Page. She's a bankruptcy attorney in Prosper, Frisco area. We talk about options and kind of different scenarios on where you might be in your situation and how bankruptcy may help or hurt you, and then also effects with the new bill, the CARES Act with COVID and all of that going on right now. We kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like. My name is Zach Pritchard. I'm with All Around Financial Coaching. I'm a financial coach, and we're looking to help you guys out, trying to help you give as much information as I can to you guys so that y'all can better serve or better help your situation. Please enjoy the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them at the bottom of the video. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. Would love to interact with you. Thank you.
We'll start with mainly what are the main types of bankruptcy?
So for individuals, there's typically a 7 or a 13. Individuals can file a Chapter 11, but that's typically because they have exceeded the debt limit for Chapter 13. So in a Chapter 13, which is a wage earner bankruptcy, your secured debt, so that would be like mortgage, cars, the cap is about 1.3 million. So most people, especially in Texas, most people don't have home mortgages that are that high. Yeah. So most individuals, if they're trying to reorganize, they're going to file a Chapter 13. And that's anywhere you're proposing a plan from 3 years or 5 years to repay your debt. And whether it's a 3 or a 5 is dependent on your income and your household size.
Okay. And so you're basically, 13 is a repayment plan.
Right.
It's not a complete wipe off.
Right. The complete wipeout is the Chapter 7, which is sometimes called straight bankruptcy or a liquidation bankruptcy.
Basically, you're liquidating every asset, paying down as much debt, and then the rest of it's gone.
Well, actually, you don't have to liquidate your assets.
Okay.
That's just what it's called.
I gotcha.
Because you only have to liquidate assets that are not exempt, which means protected. And in Texas, our exemptions are pretty broad. So you can exempt a lot.
Sure.
You could live in a house free and clear, no mortgage, that's worth $1 million, and it would be exempt from your creditors. So you wouldn't have to liquidate that because we have homestead protection.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if you had debt on the house and so they just won't take the house from you if it's paid off.
Right.
But
right. It would be protected. And if you have a mortgage and you're still making payments on your house is still protected. You just have to continue to make your mortgage payments.
Yeah. Okay. And then during, if you had, rental property or anything like that may be paid off, then that's liquidated potentially.
That would probably be liquidated. If you had a home and rental property, you don't get to keep both.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's assuming that you had, like you said, a paid off rental property or no equity in the rental property.
I gotcha. Okay. So the main types are 7 and 13, with 11 being the high debt limit. Is that more of a business?
Right. Right. Like right now you're hearing like lots of retailers are filing bankruptcy. They're filing Chapter 11. JCPenney, Neiman Marcus, Lucky Brand I saw the other day. They filed those are Chapter 11.
Is that similar to the 13 and a repayment plan, or is that more of the 7?
Yeah, it's a repayment plan on steroids.
Okay.
Because they might have lots and lots of debt. And so some people, I was in a Facebook group and people were freaking out. Neiman Marcus filed bankruptcy. And I said, they may be trying to get rid of some unprofitable locations and get out of some leases. So it doesn't really mean the end of the world for them. It could actually be a very strategic business move.
Absolutely. I think you see that a lot more from a business perspective, not just trying to get out of the debt. And, they're paying it back. They're just trying to cut ties where they can, I guess. But
Right.
especially in times like this where things are
Mhm.
tight or whatnot. But
Yeah.
so I guess, if you don't want to go too much into it, the CARES Act, are there anything big that changes?
So one of the big changes in the CARES Act for people who are already in a Chapter 13 repayment plan is, like I said, that's a 3 to 5 year repayment plan. So what the CARES Act did, that was signed into law at the end of March, is it allows people who were already in a Chapter 13, if they had some sort of income reduction due to COVID-19, they can extend that repayment plan for an additional 2 years. And I've actually modified Chapter 13 plan successfully and got the order signed a couple of weeks ago. So my client had a disruption in her income due to COVID. She was working part-time at the mall, and of course malls were closed, so she had lost some income. And so now she has an additional 2 years to repay her debt.
Okay. So go ahead.
There's also not necessarily bankruptcy related, but what the CARES Act did is said that people could do a mortgage forbearance. So they could take a 3-month break from making their mortgage payments. Initially, what was happening with that is with a forbearance, it just means at the end of that 3 months, you've got to make up all those 3 months of payments.
Yeah.
So it may not really be a big help to people. A lot of people didn't really understand what they were getting into, and some of those people may end up being in trouble with their mortgages at some point, and their property may get posted for foreclosure. But then they would have the option to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy if that were to happen to them down the road. And that would allow them some time to get caught up on those payments that they couldn't make because maybe they had an income reduction or something.
So the income reduction only applies if they were already in the middle of repaying, not if they were to apply now for 13.
No, that would apply now for Chapter 13. That, let's say that in April they did a mortgage forbearance. So April, May, June, they didn't have to make their mortgage payments. Okay, now we're in July. So they have a couple of options. They need to pay April, May, June, and July, or they can ask their mortgage company for an additional 3-month extension. But if they can't make those payments at 7 months, they may end up having to file a bankruptcy so that they don't lose their home.
And would that be a typical 3 to 5 year plan, or would they give them the extra 2?
They don't get the extra 2. You already had to have been in bankruptcy and had your plan approved by the court to be able to take advantage of that extra 2 years.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess within the debt, like what debt is not bankruptable? I know there's student loans.
And some taxes. And that tax is very specific because you can actually discharge old tax debt if you timely filed your tax return. So that's why it's important to always file your tax return. Yeah. If you know that you've got taxes that you owe, don't be afraid. Just bite the bullet, file that tax return, because down the road, you may be able to file a bankruptcy and discharge those taxes.
I gotcha.
So you want to guess what's my the largest tax debt I've discharged for a client?
100.
A little bit north of there,
Moving
120.
north. Wow.
Yeah, 120. Yeah.
And that's basically he filed every year, even though he was owing
Yep.
money.
Yep.
And so when he filed, there was a 13 or
That was in a chapter 7.
11. Because it
And then
discharged him completely.
yeah. Yep. And they still had some more. So then we filed a chapter 13 so they could do a repayment plan for the other taxes that they owed.
Okay. Well, was it a business or?
They did have a business. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. I just can't, I was trying to figure out how you would accumulate that much tax.
You have to make a lot of money to owe that much in taxes. Yeah.
I guess that's true. I guess if you make quite a bit, you can get there. But
yeah.
So we talk about the process or the repayment plans of 3 to 5 years. How long would you say the whole process is from the minute they come and consult with you to filing to completing that 3 to 5 year mark?
Okay. So for some people, I have homework that you have to do. So let's say, you know, I talked to somebody today and maybe they're done with their homework by tomorrow. Not likely. It usually takes people a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You also have to take a class online. It's about an hour or so. It's a credit counseling class. And so we could have them in bankruptcy. If I talk to them today, they return their homework tomorrow, we could have them in bankruptcy by Friday.
Okay.
And then that's what starts the process. You have to file your case to get the process started.
I gotcha.
But
then,
it usually takes people a little bit longer than 24 hours to do their homework.
is it like a court process where you have to go to court and all that, or?
No, you typically don't go to court.
Okay.
So you do have to attend a first meeting of creditors, whether that's a chapter 7 or chapter 13. And that's kind of a misnomer because there typically isn't a second or third meeting and the creditors don't come to the meeting.
Oh, okay.
So it's a pretty quick meeting. Those are being done telephonically now through the end of the year due to COVID because they schedule 2 or 3 of those every 15 minutes. So as you can imagine, the meeting room can get pretty crowded, sometimes like standing room only, meeting room. And those are for my area, which is the Eastern District of Texas in Plano. They're done at the Plano Center, and it's not in one of those big ballrooms. It tends to be in one of the smaller rooms. And so they're just not having people pack into rooms like that. So they're telephonic.
And so the 3 to 5 year process, does that start when you file it? Like you were saying, if
Yes.
homework was gotten and you filed it Friday, that's when that starts?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's not a lengthy process in the beginning. It's just that time of repayment or
Right.
So on a
so
chapter, go ahead.
It takes about 2 or 3 months after your case is filed before the court approves your plan.
I gotcha.
But it's still that 3 to 5 years starts from the time your case is filed.
I gotcha. And are you so they have to approve it before you start paying on that
No.
repayment plan? So
Nope, you start making your payments 30 days after your case is filed.
I gotcha. Okay.
So you're making your payments. So what that also means is that if for some reason you don't make those payments, you can't get your plan approved by the court and your case is going to be dismissed. And that means you're back to square one.
Are you able to reapply at that point? Is it harder?
You can file another case. Now, when you file a bankruptcy, you have what's called automatic stay, and your creditors are automatically stayed from taking any actions against you. But if you have had a case dismissed within a year and you file another case, then your attorney has to file a motion to extend that stay because that automatic stay is only good for 30 days. So there is an extra step involved. If you have had 2 cases dismissed for whatever reason, and then you file another case, then there is no automatic stay in place. So your attorney has to file a motion to impose the automatic stay. And there is a hearing for that. And right now our hearings are done telephonically. So you have to get on the phone and wait in line for your case to be called. So mute your phone. I have had some of the telephonic hearings, and you've heard dogs barking and things like that. We just go with the flow.
Gotta go with the flow, right?
Go with the flow.
And so on the chapter 7, what is the process? What is the length of time there? Is it quicker? I'm gonna assume it's quicker because you're not doing the repayment, right?
Right. So that lasts about 90 to 100 days. So if you turned your homework in tomorrow, we filed your chapter 7 on Friday, your creditors meeting would be in August at some point. And then about 61 days after your creditors meeting, the court enters an order of discharge, and then your case is closed. So it's a very quick process.
Okay. And then how long do they stay on your record or any of that?
Sure, it's 10 years from the date of discharge.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna skip down. It's kind of related. I mean, what if it stays on 10 years? What does that do to your credit, your credit history, and all that type of stuff?
So I am not a credit expert, but here's what I can tell you. I don't have clients coming back and telling me I can't do X because I filed a bankruptcy. What I do have them coming back and telling me is, I know you told me to keep all the paperwork that you gave me, but I lost it. I'm buying a house and I need it. Can you get it to me? So to me, what that says to me is that it's not that bad.
Yeah.
It may be there, but it's not stopping people from doing what they want to do. And in terms of like buying a car, I've had people buy cars in the middle of their chapter 7. And like I said, that's a pretty quick process, but you can surrender a car in a chapter 7. Let's say you owe more on the car than the car's worth. You're upside down. You can surrender your car. And for some people, they're upside down because they rolled over negative equity when they bought a car. So they bought a car, they owed money on the car, and they just said, I want to buy a new car and I'll just roll it over and I'll be fine. Yeah. And then, so they can surrender that car in a chapter 7, go get another car, and they will have maybe even lower payments on a newer car.
I gotcha.
Now, what I have heard is that some lenders are making it a little bit more difficult for people to buy a car. And I think that's COVID related. And I just haven't explored that with any car lenders. That's kind of on my to-do list and see what's going on with that.
I haven't heard too much of that yet, but something I may dig into it as well. So I guess that kind of relates. My question here is, how soon can I buy a house after filing? And it sounds like maybe depending on a couple of years, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So it's not like you're going to be able to file this year and by the end of the year try and apply and buy a house.
Right. And that is based on federal lending regulations. And those are always subject to change.
Yeah. Okay. And then when you're talking to a client, is there a threshold of when it makes sense to file or not? Like if they have an X amount of debt, or what is the typical situation?
So there really isn't a typical situation. So there isn't, I wouldn't say you have to have $20,000 in credit card debt. There's no qualifier. So that's usually something I would talk to my clients about on an individual basis. So somebody may not have a lot of credit card debt, but they may have a car that they're upside down on that needs a lot of repairs. And so it would make sense, even though they don't have a lot of credit card debt, but they can get rid of a car. So a Chapter 7 might make sense for them.
Okay. And then are there any downsides of filing in your, I mean,
Don't know. I mean, here again, that's an individual thing. Some people may want to buy a house, and they may want to buy a house in less than 2 years, and they may not be able to.
I got you.
But it really is, it's what's your objective? What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, where are you trying to get to with that process?
Right. What is making you think I want to file a bankruptcy? Have you been sued by a credit card company? Are they going to be able to get a judgment against you and record that judgment against your house? I mean, that might make sense for you to file a bankruptcy to protect your assets.
So is there, I mean, in your practice, are there times where you'll meet with somebody and decide that they, based on their objective, it's not the best idea to file?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a go-to, like they come in and you automatically just do it. Just,
right.
You actually have that conversation with them to determine whether, you're going to be able to meet their goals, what their objective is.
I mean, I have suggested for some people, like, why don't you go try to find a part-time job and pay your debt, because it's doable.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's looking at your budget and trying to figure out what maybe the debt snowball makes sense for you.
Yeah.
And for some people, it just seems overwhelming, but after they really look at everything and actually talk to somebody, because a lot of times they haven't talked to anybody about what's going on. And
Absolutely.
So maybe we can map out a strategy where they don't need to file.
Yeah. Cool. And that's where I see that a lot more is they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So they're just overwhelmed with that process. And that's kind of where I wanted to go today, was just kind of give them some more information of the process and the details behind it. Because even bankruptcy people, just like, it's almost overwhelming. They think it's this monster or whatever it may be to them, but they may feel like it's the only way out too. And it may or may not be. In some situations,
exactly.
It can be, but in some situations it can. So,
yeah.
I guess the last thing I have is, do you have is there an average cost to file, or how does the fees work on that?
So the filing fee is the same. The filing fee is $310 for Chapter 13 and $335 for Chapter 7. And so what your legal fees are depends on your situation.
How involved do you have to get on that?
So usually I have a 40-minute complimentary strategy session that I offer individuals, and we can look at what their debts, what their assets are, what is Chapter 7 best, is Chapter 13 best, what's the best route, and then from there make a determination.
I got you. Okay, well, that's good. Are there any other basic, like in that strategic, I can't say that, in that consultation that you provide, what are some of the things that you're asking the clients? What are you helping him think about during that process?
So I want to look at your most recently filed tax return. I want to look at pay stubs, current pay stubs, monthly household budget, bank statements, and also any letters or statements from your creditors.
I gotcha.
So that we can have an idea of what your income is, how you're spending that income, and what your debts are.
I gotcha.
Some people may be servicing a lot of credit card debt, and filing a Chapter 13 is a way for them to get rid of all that credit card debt in 5 years without paying the very high finance charges that they're paying each month. And sometimes what we're looking at is, so you're making the minimum payment. How long is it going to take you to pay the debt off, making the minimum payment? How much extra are you paying to the creditor in order to do that, making minimum payments? And for most people, it's averaging 20, 25 years making minimum payments to get their debt paid. And so obviously 5 years is a lot more comfortable. You can move on with your life and just as tremendously really turn things around. Start saving for your retirement. That's the other thing I like to talk to my clients about. What's your retirement plan? Are you saving for retirement? And if you're not, why aren't you? Because you can certainly save for retirement and file bankruptcy. And your retirement, what your 401k, pension, TRS, whatever retirement assets you have, those assets are protected in bankruptcy.
Okay. That's good.
So that's all part of that 40-minute complimentary strategy session.
Okay.
We get a lot done in 40 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you had a client that had, say, the majority was student loans, maybe they had 100 in student loans and 20 in credit card miscellaneous debt. Is it feasible to do anything with that from a bankruptcy standpoint, or what do you talk to clients that way?
So sometimes the problem is that the student loan creditor is garnishing their wages and taking up to 50% of their wages. So sometimes they file a bankruptcy to stop that wage garnishment and kind of get themselves back on track. And there are all kinds of creative plans you can come up with. I mean, it may be where the bankruptcy is taking care of your credit card debt and you're going to pay your student loans directly, but they're not able to garnish your wages and take 50% of your wages. So
there are some things that we can do to help people in those situations.
Right.
Especially those that are maybe garnishing, at some level. But Okay. Well, awesome. I think that covers mainly all the questions I have. Is there anything you'd like to add that you can think of?
Sure. I mean, a lot of people have a really negative concept of what a bankruptcy is, and it doesn't end your life. It can actually set you on a really good trajectory for the rest of your life. And I always like to say #bankruptcy is beautiful. So there are lots of options available for you to help you get on the right path and to change lives for your children and your grandchildren.
Kind of a new start, right? I mean, it kind of resets things and kind of gets you on a new path. And it's because obviously, if you're thinking about bankruptcy, you don't like the way you've been or where you've been going, so you want to change something. And it gives you that opportunity to do something.
Yeah, have a fresh start.
Awesome.
Well, guys, that was our conversation with Miss Theta. Got a lot of good info out of there. I hope you did too. I just wanted to kind of come in at the end and just let you know that I don't recommend that y'all just make that decision on your own. I would recommend that you sit down with a bankruptcy attorney or sit down with a coach like me, and let's look at your situation. Let's see how we can play that out, how it looks, who's coming after you, all those types of things. Don't be the person that just jumps into it because it's an easy way out or whatever. You may have other options. So let's sit down, let's look at it. I offer free consults, so feel free to give us a call, jump in. We'll do a Zoom call with you or in person, depending on the time. We'll do that. We'll take a look at it. We'll give you our best recommendation. So, but thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.